Good morning, Nigerians, and welcome to February. Yes, we made it. Even if we're as broke as ever, because, hey, let's be honest, that January salary is like gone, like faster than ever, faster than you can say, faster than lightning, in fact. I mean, hey, so while we're celebrating the world's fastest January in the history of Januaries, we also lament the funds that have disappeared faster than you can say, dirty December. I know, right? Bills, 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 and more bills that we had to pay. But don't worry, we're all in this struggle together. At least, last that I checked, we're all Nigerian. Today, we're diving into governance, power, labor, legacy, health, and unity, everything that makes up Nigeria. Yay! Another year, another rigmarole through policy changes, cabinet reshuffles, price hikes, and a general bad economy. But it's business as usual for us. Nothing says progress like the same old song being sung a little louder in 2025. So, first up, Plato's cabinet shake-up or reshuffle, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you could say I have a plan somewhere, like a moment for Governor Mutfwang, and he decides that a reshuffle is the way to go. I mean, is this really about competence, or is it just about making the seat warming look interesting? You know what, I should give Governor Mutfwang a break because he really has tried so far. And while we're on reshuffles, we also hear that the grand $23.2 billion Lighting Nigeria plan has been unveiled by the Power Minister. And I can't help but ask, is this a real light at the end of the tunnel moment? Or maybe it's just another metaphorical flash of hope. Because you see, NEPA, PHCN, we've heard this one before. And then there is the Telecom's tariff hike, 50%. What can I say? The NLC, I'm wondering whether it's right to protest or if everybody backs them on this one, or would you rather just pay the extra and get better service? Because honestly, I'm with the latter, and I'm not ashamed of it. If you want, you can come at me with your pitchforks and knives. I'm still going to stand on business on this one and say, if you pay more, you might just get better service. Think about it. But hey, I need to be able to at least make calls that can not drop every mid-sentence when I'm trying to call my mom or my wife. And then there's that honoring of Pa Akinkunmi. Let's first of all say this. He's the designer of the Nigerian flag. 1959, he gave us an identity. Let me just ask, why now? It's been since 1959, and we're only just getting around to thanking him now, posthumously even in 2025. Thank you for the 30 million naira that was given to the family and the recognition, but still side-eye to the Nigerian government for that one. But congrats once again to the family, and thank you for recognizing an icon, even if it is posthumous. We have to take it when we can. Once in a while it comes. Oh, there's more inside of today's show, and we're going to be getting around to that one. First of all, it's like I said, better late than never for the last one. In any case, Wellness today is going to be very interesting as we observe World Cancer Day. It's the silent killer, they say, and we're going to be demystifying it. But let's be real. How much of the billions that go into being spent in that go into being put into cancer research is actually being spent worthwhile? We'll discuss all of that today if you stick around. And I hear that the 4th of February is going to be World Fraternity Day, a day of coexistence, peace, and also unity. Sounds like a noble cause, doesn't it? But if we're being honest, with some countries eloping, some of them in triads, like Burkina Faso, Mali, and the rest, makes you ask the question, what relevance is the relationship between democracy and military rule? Well, we'll get to talk about that one as we discuss World Fraternity Day. Just stick around, go nowhere. And plus, I have a question for Judith when she gets here. Would she rather be just friends or friends with benefits? Because, I'm talking about it in a sense where you have the different countries and the different displays of governance and how they have to interact, especially come World Fraternity Day. All this, if you stick around here for Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal, and my co-host Judith Atibi will be joining me. We'll be going through the dailies first off, and then bringing you some of those very juicy, sometimes entertaining or worrying stories that make up Nigeria. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. A very good morning to you and happy Sunday. It's the second day of February, by the way. My name is Judith and TV. Of course, Mizuno has done his intro, also his monologue to bring you in. But welcome to Sunday. Mizuno, how are you doing?
I'm doing very fine, thank you very much. You missed out on one. I was asking what your position on Friends with Benefits is as we talk about World Fraternity Day coming 4th of February. Fraternity, don't look at it that way. Oh, calm down.
It's a Sunday.
No,
what are you doing?
Judith, what I meant was in fraternity or friendships, you have to, there's a sense of transaction that goes on. You've taken a totally different
I do not
exit
care.
on this
when
conversation.
I was asking about Friends with Benefits. What are you supposed to think of? I mean,
so I'm talking democratic West Africa versus military rule Sahel bloc. We are still in West Africa together.
Right.
We still have to maintain a sense of fraternity as nations. So my question
is... Well, you should have led with that. All right, you don't come and say, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Should have led with that.
The rope-a-dope. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring you guys into our first conversation for today as we talk our first big story, or rather first big report. Now, governance in Nigeria is often marked by political recalibrations, let's put it that way. And in Plateau State, the latest shake-up in Governor Caleb Mutfwang's cabinet has raised eyebrows. 5 commissioners have been relieved of their duties, well, in what has been described as a minor reshuffle by the state government. However, political observers argue that such changes are rarely minor, especially in a state with a historic, this history of political realignments and ethnic sensitivities. So the decision announced earlier this week, or last week rather, has left many wondering about the motivations behind it, whether it's a response to inefficiencies, political maneuvering, or maybe it's a mix of both.
And now to break down these details, we're joined by our correspondent Chizoba Anyowe. She's been tracking reactions from government insiders, political analysts, and also residents of Plateau State. So the question is, what are the immediate consequences of these dismissals? Are the new appointees and who are the new appointees and what do they bring to the table? And crucially as well, what does this mean for governance in Plateau going forward? Well, over the week, Chizoba put together a very detailed report just capturing the pulse of the people. Let's take a look.
On the 4th of August 2023, the 5 affected commissioners from the Ministries of Budget and Economic Planning, Youth and Sports, Tourism, Science and Technology, as well as Commerce, alongside 14 others, were inaugurated and urged by Governor Caleb Mutfwang to join hands with his government in developing Plateau State. 18 months after, the state governor decides he needs to rejig his cabinet.
This is a sign and some kind of caveat to those in authority to tighten their belts, to do the needful, to work in the interest of Plateau State, to support His Excellency in dishing out the dividends of democracy to Plateau people.
The commissioner is also quick to speak on the expectation of the governor from the new commissioners.
They should know that this is the time for growth. They should know that the land is green. They should key in and socket into the mandate, into the vision, into the philosophy, mission of His Excellency Barrister Caleb Mutfwang.
A cross-section of residents of Plateau feels the move, which is the governor's first since assuming office, is a welcome development.
The reshuffle yesterday was timely, and Plateau citizens will expect that the new ones that are coming in will definitely bring in new ideas.
It's a lesson for them. In the future, when an opportunity is given to them, they should sit up. And for those coming in, I advise that they should actually serve as expected.
Like the governor said, he wants to see performance. He wants to see credibility for people to feel governance. I think that is the essence of it. To me, it's a welcome development.
With opinions of people in the state, expectations are actually high for these new commissioners that will be coming on board. They are expected to bring in novel ideas that will cause more developmental strides in the state. In Jos, Plateau State for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyowe.
Many thanks for Chizoba for that report. Now, to help us make sense of these political maneuverings, we're joined by two guests. Chizoba is going to join us during the course of this conversation. But for now, the Commissioner for Information and Communications, Plateau State, the Honorable Commissioner, will help us unpack the broader implications of the cabinet shake-up, both for Plateau politics and for governance in Nigeria at large.
Mr. Musa Ashams, Honorable Musa Ashams, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me this morning in breakfast on your station. Thank you.
Great. We also have joining us Chizoba Anyanwe from Justice World. Chizoba, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. Chizoba, now while you're putting together this report, thank you very much, by the way, for that report. But we'd like to ask what your overview of the report or the circumstances surrounding the report was first before we go into the subject.
As you may know, the governor of any state is the chief executive officer of that state. And with that position, he can hire and fire. I'm quoting my commissioner earlier on when I had an interview with him, putting out that report. And so it's at his own discretion to choose who serves at what position, you know. At the same time, it's also how the capacity to reshuffle his cabinet, so to speak, at any point he chooses. And this may be because of the output of the people that he has put in certain positions to help him achieve the targets that he has already set out to achieve by the end of his tenure. And so from what I gathered from people, some are of the opinion that the commissioners that were relieved of their positions were not really up and doing, were not really giving what the governor really wanted from them. And so he decided it was time to let them go. And while he tries some other set of people to see if he will be able to achieve those targets with this new crop of commissioners that are coming on board. So it's a whole lot of things for people to understand, because at the same time, some people will tell you in some quarters that some of the commissioners that were relieved of their positions had actually done what they could do in about 18 months thereabouts, you know, and they were asked to give way for some others to try their luck. And so all in all, we just hope that this is in the best interest of the state for people. That's the major thing, for people of the state to enjoy the dividends of the democracy that everyone is actually craving for.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for that. Let me turn to Honorable Ashams. Many thanks again, sir, for joining us. I mean, I have to ask, just well into his administration, His Excellency, the Governor of the state, have decided this cabinet shuffle. Why? Honorable Ashams.
Is it my question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. You know, in every event, in every scenario, you have to take a look at whatever you've given and whatever you've the journey so far. And as a government, His Excellency has decided to say, okay, thank you for your services. We need to bring new hands. You know, these commissioners were from 4 local governments, and they've been replaced with people from the same local governments. And again, these people have been screened by the Plateau State House of Assembly. You know, there's a need for reshuffling and reshufflement, and that is what the governor has done. We are his lieutenants as commissioners. When the people of Plateau State gave him a mandate, he was the one that was voted. Our own responsibility came as a result of him appointing us. So he has appointed us, and he has said, okay, 5 of you for now, take a bow. So I bring in 5 other persons. We're all Plateau people. So he has tried 5 Plateau people, and he has told them to take a bow. So I bring in another set of people. And I know that it's just to strengthen governance. It's just to add rejig and add value. You know, when you're moving, you need to recalibrate. And that is what the governor has done. There's nothing new in what he has done. There's nothing wrong with what he has done. It's in the interest of good governance. It is in the interest of Plateau people. We're not bringing these people from another country or another state. They are Plateau people from the same local government areas that the commissioners that were relieved of their duties are. For example, the 2 commissioners from Kwanpan local government area were relieved. 2 commissioner nominees from Kwanpan local government area have been screened. 1 from Basa was relieved, another one from Basa has been screened. 1 from Shandam, 1 from Shandam has been replaced. And I don't think it is something to worry about. It is in the interest of good governance. It is in the interest of deliverables. It is in the interest.
Honorable Ashton, would like to take a look critically at the specific commissioners that were actually affected. I have a list here of Noel Nkup, who's the Commissioner for Youth and Sports, Jamila Tukur for Tourism and Hospitality, Obed Koseli for Science and Technology, Musa Sule for Commerce and Industry, and we also have information here that Chrysanthus Dawam and Jamila Tukur were suspended last year for about 3 months. Taking a look at their own purview, what they are supposed to, their unit here, Budget and Commission, and also, let me see, Tukur was for Tourism and Hospitality. What were the reasons, the specific reasons why these commissioners were relieved of their duties? Could you please put that in tangible form so that we can understand what they were not doing correctly? Were the projects that were perhaps mishandled or that didn't even take off at all? What were the specific reasons that these commissioners lost their positions?
Like I've said earlier in the interview that Chizoba ran, the power to hire and fire lies with the governor. And, you know, we do not have what it takes to question such things because the mandate, the vision, the governor is the career. We are only but lieutenants. And when they were suspended, it was made known that it was for a lot of reasons, an amalgam of reasons, a myriad of reasons. But the bottom line is that we want Plateau to work, we want Plateau to succeed, and the governor whom the people have decided to give the mandate of leading Plateau State to glory, I said, okay, I've paraded 20 of you, now I'm relieving 5 of you. It's like in football matches. You know, sometimes you relieve even your best players to preserve them for another match that is bigger. So I don't think there's anything wrong. Cabinet reshufflement is an integral part of governance. It has happened before, it will happen in the future. As we speak, when these 5 commissioners are screened fully and the governor has sworn them in, responsibilities will be changed. People will be swapped. People will be taken to other ministries, not because they've not been doing well, but because they will do better in the new ministries that will be assigned to them. So the idea is that 5 commissioners were taken off and 5 commissioners were brought in. I was talking about Professor Obed Guseli from Lantang South was relieved, and another person from Lantang South has replaced him. So it is going to be a great team. In this new team that we have a former Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Joyce Renap. We have a member of the House of Assembly that was elected before the Court of Appeal sacked them, my brother from Kwampan. We also have 2 doctors and an architect, a former commissioner in the Governor Jonah Jang-led administration. So they are bringing experiences that is going to add value to governance on the plateau. They've been screened by the House of Assembly already. All the awaits now is swearing in by the Executive Governor of Plateau State, His Excellency Mr. Caleb Mutfwang, and portfolios will be assigned to them. Like I told you, even the commissioners, the 15 that survived this shake-up, some of them will be given new assignments, and that's not to say they've been incompetent with the assignments bestowed on them, but because there's a need for, when you've done well, you can be given another responsibility, and maybe by now, your assessment would have shown that you can also do better in another ministry. So basically, those are the issues. I don't think there's any need for any alarm.
It's very interesting that you said the commissioners have survived, you used the term survived the shake-up, also are going to be doing a good job. But let's look at the new team that has now been put up, or the new commissioners that have now been appointed. They've gone through the processes and they're waiting for their swearing in or their ceremony to happen. You railed out their achievements and their CV, their bio. One is a doctor, one was a former commissioner, and so they are, according to you, prepared for this job, or they are adequately qualified for this job. But with the last 5 that have left, was there some sort of KPI or roadmap for the portfolio that they were supposed to, they were tasked with? And with this new team, what is their KPI? What is expected from them, from this portfolio? The
expectation from the governor is that they will help him in taking their ministries to the level that they've not reached before.
Were they giving any roadmap?
Dividends of democracy is to help him in bringing his manifesto to bear in their various ministries. You know, like we said, the governance on the plateau has taken a new shape. And by May 2029 of 2025, will be 2 years in office. Time doesn't stand still for no one. And this governor has come ready, he has come prepared, he has the manifesto to transform Plateau State, and he has been doing that all this while. But he feels that the bar needs to be raised. Basically, that's the issue. The KPI for this governor is the advancement, is the growth, is the development of Plateau State. And we're on track. Like everybody knows on the plateau, by January, we had fertilizer for this 2025 farming season already. By January, we have tractors for this 2025 farming season already. So we must have people that will help him achieve this mandate. People that, because the governor cannot be everywhere. He was voted, we were not voted, but we are his mandate carriers, we are his vision carriers too. So we cannot afford to fail him. We cannot afford to fail Plateau people. We are not saying that those that were asked to take a bow failed Plateau people. But if you're having a job, like you do a retrospective review of whatever you're doing, and that's what the governor has done. And like I told you, he has given names of others that will replace them, and they've been screened by the Plateau State House of Assembly. What they await now is swearing in and swinging into action and working in the interest of Plateau people. You know, when you are replacing someone, the expectation from you is that you do better than the person. When someone is asked to take a bow and you are given the mantle of leadership to take over from them, the expectations is that you will do far better than them, way better than them. And that is what I hope and we wish to see this new nominees do and bring to board. We expect that they bring their experiences in their various fields. We expect that they help the governor in achieving his mandate. The time is now mandate, the land is green mandate, and our Plateau people at the end of the day should be the ones that are going to benefit from all of the experiences, exposure, and education they bring to board, to bear.
Okay. Chizoba, I would like to ask you a question. You are in Plateau and you feel the pulse of the people. When this announcement was made about the shake-ups, what was the reaction like from the people of Plateau?
Oh, well, Judith, your guess is as good as mine in this case. It's a public affair, and it is governance. Governance also has to do with the people. So, to a large extent, if you ask me, it's more of what the people feel, because they are the ones feeling the brunt of the whole thing. So, for some of them that I interviewed, and some, of course, that spoke off camera, they felt like what the governor did was right, was okay for them. So they termed it as a welcome development, in the sense that for them, which of course they have the right to their own opinion, they feel that some of the commissioners that were released of their duties actually not doing so much. They were not feeling the impact from those ministries, you know, and so it was right for the governor to let them go, to say, okay, let's try this other hand and see what happens, because according to the governor, he's not here for jokes. He says it like at every event he attends. He's not here for jokes. He's here to be sure that the people he has come about to serve get what they are supposed to get during his tenure. And so people are of the opinion that it's a good move by the governor to change hands and see if he gets something better from those other people that he has brought on board hoping, of course, it's about expectations now to see what they bring on board. And like the commissioner said earlier, some of them had been in government positions to serve the state at different levels. So we believe that their coming on board will bring some changes that people will be okay with, and we hope that the governor will be able to smile at the end of the day that he took a good decision.
Chizoba, I'm still going to ask, I'm going to come to you with this question. I believe that if we don't know where we're coming from, we don't know where we're going. So I'm still stuck on the aspect of finding out exactly how the previous commissioners underperformed. I'm going to take one commissioner and use that as a sample here. Let's talk about Jamila Tuko, who was commissioner for tourism. Plateau State, as we know, it is big on tourism, whether we like it or not. Once you think tourism in Nigeria, the first place that comes to mind is Plateau State.
Not Obudu Ranch?
And no, not Obudu. You're being sentimental, Judith.
I do, I am.
But so the question is, how did she underperform in her responsibility then? Because if you do this, then you're able to set in a roadmap, like Judith was asking, for what these commissioners are supposed to do better. So what was the underperformance of that commission? How did it go? What are we looking at not happening again in the future? Chizoba, if you would help me with that, please. I don't know if you discovered any of these tidbits during the gathering of information for that report.
Well, Mazino, I am a correspondent here.
I know.
I feel the pulse of the people. So let me move away from my own personal feelings here and talk about what the people think about all this happening.
That would be fair.
Yeah, Plateau, actually known for being a home of tourism, like you said. Anybody in Nigeria, you ask, where should I go for vacation and stuff like that, Plateau comes to mind, and you won't take it away from here. Despite the fact that insecurity at some point seemed like engulfing the whole state, but to a large extent now, it's been relative peace on the Plateau and everyone has been going about their local businesses. Now, talking about tourism now, negativity has a very big part, though, on the negative to play in the minds of people. When so many would have heard about killings here and there, they sometimes feel it is not safe to go to that same place. I know that there are some reports I get to do, and when it's aired, people get to call me, Chizoba, what are you still doing there? Do you mean you went there? Didn't I hear gunshots and all those, and you're there? Killings here and there. And I'm like, it's not the way you people see, just that we have to show you certain things to know that this is real and we know how to exactly tackle it to have a safe and more secure Plateau. So based on that, some people feel that, these insecurity tides had brought the tourism sector in Plateau State to a halt, so to speak. But at the same time, they feel that the commissioner should have thought out of the box to create more avenues and, gain her way through it so that tourism will still have its own part to play in Plateau State and in the minds of people, not just relenting and saying, oh, because of this, because of that, I'm just saying what people are thinking. Yes. And everybody has their own opinion. So Mr. A has different thoughts from what Mr. B also thinks about it. So that's the peculiarity here. So by and large, we just leave it to the governor that has taken his decision, and we all hope that the new crop of commissioners coming on board will do the need to bring Plateau to the limelight.
All right, Chizoba, many thanks for doing this with us, and many thanks for your report. Chizoba Niowe, they are correspondent all the way from Plateau, the capital, Jos, and also Honorable Musa Ashams. He is the Commissioner for Information and Communication for Plateau State, joining us today as well. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much, and good morning to you.
Thank you for having
me. All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Let's go on a short break. When we return, it's time for energy. We're lighting up Nigeria, or are we? We'll find out after the break. Join us again. Welcome back. You see, Nigeria's power sector has been plagued by inefficiencies. insufficient generation capacity, and an unreliable grid that is as unreliable as my relationships, but who's counting? Leaving millions of citizens and businesses struggling with inconsistent electricity supply. In a bold move to tackle this crisis, the federal government has unveiled a $23.2 billion energy access plan aimed at expanding electricity coverage and driving sectorial growth. It's spearheaded by the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. Now, this ambitious initiative promises major reforms, increased investments, and a commitment to closing Nigeria's enormous energy gap. At the heart of this plan is the question of visibility and execution. How exactly does the government intend to fund and implement this massive initiative? What role would private sector participation play? And critically, can this plan deliver tangible improvements where previous efforts have failed?
So, to find out, joining us, we are joined by a very interesting current affairs or public affairs analyst, Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Together, we're going to be examining the broader implications of this initiative.
Well, joining us now to dissect the implications of this energy plan, this energy access plan, is public affairs analyst Wisdom Chap Jumbo, and we're going to be examining the broader implications of this initiative, its potential impact on households and businesses, and whether this marks a true turning point for Nigeria's power sector. Wisdom, do you have wisdom for us this morning?
I'll try my best.
Good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Listen, Nigeria's power sector has faced quite, I made a joke about, I'll leave it. But Nigeria's power sector has had its fair share of failures.
Yes.
I would say fair share. I mean, for as long as I remember, I don't think I've lived where there's 24-hour power supply.
Really?
Except I were paying for it. You know what I mean? Like in Nigeria, it's not, you don't have 24-hour power supply except you pay the extra cost privately.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And so with this $23.2 billion plan, what's it going to do? What difference will it make? Would it add any value to us?
Okay, good morning and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here with your wisdom.
I'm just so sorry to hear that you've not really lived in a place where there's 24 hours.
In this Nigeria?
Yes, there is. If you in my local government in River State, the Bonny local government,
yeah, well,
there is 24 hours.
Why is that?
Even though it's shaking
Why
now.
is that?
But if you go to Jos too, there's a place in Jos.
Why is that?
In Jos, so in Bonny we have the Bonny Utility Company.
There you go.
Yeah,
You're being honest. You're making it sound.
Yeah. So, but it's where we are getting to in the power sector. In Jos too, they have I think it's NASCO. A power company also that sort of provides.
Exactly.
I can't remember the details.
So privatized, they're able to.
So it's where we are getting to with the establishment or the passing into act, the Electricity Act of 2023, signed by President Tinubu when he came into office. So that is the direction we are heading to now, where states take charge of generation, distribution, and transmission, and also the regulation, of power in their own geographical location is where we are heading to, and we think that is the game changer for the sector, where this state will take charge of this. Now coming back to your question on what this funding would really do for Nigeria, this funding mentioned was part of the National Energy Compact that was presented at the Dar es Salaam Summit, African Energy Summit in Tanzania, just last week. Yes. And the power minister, of course, presented this on behalf of the federal government. And the president was also there to sign to and endorse the commitment, which he was part of 30 African leaders that were there, for that endorsement. Fantastic. Right. So what this means is Nigeria has committed to indeed putting more work to the electrification and, of course, closing the energy access gap in the country. And that compact, if you read it, they've tried to put in a few targets for themselves that they want to set to meet. And I think it's very good for a good start. And if they can live up to that commitment and that compact, maybe in the next 5 years, we might see slightly, good progress, because the situation is very bad as at the moment. 86 million Nigerians don't have access to energy. And that's a problem for us. And that's a very big problem because energy itself contributes a lot to the economy. And if many businesses cannot rely on constant power in the country, then we have a big problem. But like I said, the game changer here is what was already in the Electricity Act that was passed in 2023. So far, since then, about 10 states have been able to decentralize, that policy, and their state assemblies have set up what we call, the electricity market. So with this now, and with NEC also, overseeing all of this, we hope that this will change. So citizens of each state, instead of holding the state government, the federal government, will now hold their state government, responsible for the issue of power.
You just used the word here, which I find very interesting, which has popped up many times. You hope that this will let me land.
We have to hope.
It's not the first time we saw this with NEPA, PHC, and King. We thought the change would come with the change of the name. It's been decades since after. So how so sure are we that these funds would first of all be funded, and then the allocation of these funds, how so sure are we that it will be effective?
Transparency,
Nigeria, racketeering that goes on and all of this. This is $23 billion now. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the allocation, how are we sure that this will be effective?
So just that amount, what that compact is saying is to achieve electrifying Nigeria, it will cost, the whole entire program will cost $23 billion. Part of that funding, about $15 billion, will come from the private sector.
Okay.
So where my worry now is, reading that compact, is how will federal government indeed encourage private funding, into the sector? Because, as private investors, they will put in money, where they are not sure they can get. So there are a lot of work that the federal government need to do to attract this funding. Already in the energy sector itself, last year, they were able to attract about $6 billion into the energy sector as of last year. So this goes into different aspects of the energy sector, from oil and gas to renewables and all of that, about $6 billion last year, which is good. But now, without policy consistency, I worry that investors will want to put in money. So we have to be able to get it right with our policies. So that's the first step we need to start, because $15 billion we want to attract from private funding into this is a huge one. And if the private funders don't see the commitment of the government itself, then I don't see how we are going to achieve that.
Two things. Sorry, Judith. No. But still, based on that, is this a complete overhaul of the entire system? Is that what they're telling? And if it's a complete overhaul and that we're attracting PPP investment here, how affordable will electricity be after then if we're still grappling with the hike? Very well, what the government says is a minimal hike in the distribution between bands.
Okay, so good one. Yes, so that funding is to cover the entire power sector itself. They are looking at
an overhaul.
Yes, an overhaul. So they are looking at on-grid, they are looking at off-grid. And the commitment from Mr. President signing to that declaration in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania last week is they are going to increase the share of renewables, which of course we have presently at 22%. It will go up to about 50%, by the end of before 2030. Renewables,
you mean?
Renewables. So currently there's a huge share we're using on hydro, but they want to introduce it to the energy mix. Solar and all of that, which of course we are seeing a fast-growing adoption within the country. Right. So before, when you fly into the country, you see the whole roofs are empty. But these days, if you watch closely, so a lot of solar panels are going. So adoption is fast-growing, which is good. So what the federal government is saying with that, signing that declaration and commitment. So it's a commitment, by these 30 African leaders that look, we are committed that we are going to work, because Africa itself, 600 million Africans are, don't have energy access. Out of that 600 million, Nigeria contributes significantly to that number. So we have like a huge share of it. And now what they are going to agree is that before 2030, these African leaders are saying we're also agreeing to pull out or to pull in 300 million people. So 300 million Africans are going to have access to energy. So Nigeria itself, presently, we have 86 million people you know, that don't have, they lack access to energy. Some don't have reliable energy access. So there's so much work for Nigeria. So if Nigeria can achieve more, then, I mean, we have already, you know, solved part of that problem for Africa itself.
You talked about, you know, how the private sector, this is about, if you look at the percentile of it, say about 60% of it is mostly reliant on, you know, the private sector, about $15 billion.
Yeah, $15 billion.
So that's meaning like, what, 60% of that thereabout is reliant on the private sector. And there's something very critical that you raised, and that was our policy stability.
Yeah.
In our current regulatory environment that we find ourselves, whether past administration and this current administration, do you see this being long-lasting, in solving our power issues in the long term?
You know, the way you look at policy, when you try to analyze it, you look at the body language of the present government. Yes, maybe we have lacked trust in the past of different governments, but where we are today now, we have to look at the body language of the present government we are in and see if there's any possibility. The only thing that gives me somewhat assurance, let me move slightly away from hope, but some assurance is, of course, having our president being part of that 30 African leaders to first give that commitment. Aside that, Nigeria was part of the 12, you know, nations that presented their National Energy Compact, you know, which is good. This is fantastic progress. So we have this compact, we have the energy transition, Nigerian Energy Transition Plan that was presented again in 2022. We have the Electricity Act of 2023. We have these three instruments, and what investors want to see from the government is how are you staying, you know, consistently with these, you know, already established laws you have, policies. How are you consistent with that? How are you committing to that? How are you staying true to them? So 10 states from the Electricity Act, they've already set up their market. Lagos is part of it. You know, Enugu and the other 10 states. I can't remember all their states now, but 10 of them, NEC has reported they've done that. So what it means by the act is NEC is going to transfer, you know, that whole workings to the 10 states to begin to manage their market in their. So what the states will now do, which we want to encourage most of them, is some of this, your electricity market and agencies you're going to form at the state level, make sure you put competent hands. Power is like medicine, where you must have a professional, you know, administer it. so those are some of our worries. The state government want to see that they put in professionals, they look at meritocracy, and they appoint qualified people to manage. Investors will also be looking at that. You know, so those are some of the little things we need to look at.
Based on these investors and these private partnerships that we're talking about, that you have so much hope for, the question remains whether it's going to be as decentralized as we think it is. Because when you look at the national grid, the only problem why it affects every single Nigerian when it goes down is because it's central. So how decentralized will it be, especially when you impute renewable energy? Are we saying that investors will be marketing units that are not connected to a national grid? Is that how we're going to light up Nigeria, everybody possessing their own ability to generate energy? Or would there be a unit or units where people can source power from, literally? And would these be the renewable infrastructure that these investors are going to set up?
So we have to move away from the grid. The national grid as we have it is part of the major issues we're having. So we have to move away from the national grid as it is. It's obsolete, it's ancient, it is not working and serving our purpose as we have it today in 2025. So we have to move away from it. So what that Electricity Act is now saying is it has empowered, you know, before, because of the lacunas in the Constitution, the states could not. And so now those issues have been resolved with the passing of that Electricity Act in 2023. So what it means is that all 36 states in the Federation, in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, now have the power. So they can generate, they can transmit, and they can distribute. It means that if an investor comes with his money to Lagos State, for example, the investor can invest in generation. And the Lagos State government, you know, through its policy in Lagos State, can make the environment enabling for that investor to, of course.
Where they generate from, whether hydro.
No, so in fact, the commitment is there's going to be a huge contribution of renewables in that energy mix. What it means again with that policy is that Lagos, for example, in distribution, you know, can decide that we want all discos in Lagos State must ensure that all customers have meter. So now we break that barrier from what we have it today, that where we are struggling with metering across the country. Lagos State can put it in its policy as a disco. I mean, which they have their policy now. I've not read it into details. I'm still studying it. But Lagos State can have it in its policy now that for you to operate as a disco in Lagos, all customers must have meter, and it's your responsibility to give them meter. So all of this issue of metering cannot be resolved at the state level, which other states can do the same. So those bottlenecks we had, where we all relied on the national grid, at the state level we begin to solve it, one at a time, and which is indeed possible. So yeah.
A skeptic like myself will be watching and be like, please, did we not do this before? There was a statewide plan that happened with the state education agencies that was established, and I think it was during, correct me if I'm wrong now, I think it was during the Good Luck.
Is that the Rural Identification Agency?
Rural Identification. Okay. It was during the Good Luck and the late Ireoluwa administration, and then Good Luck and Namadi Sambu, which was a huge rollout, and we saw states and local governments and neighboring and bordering towns come onto the grid. And up until then, even though they're on the grid, it's one thing to be on the grid, it's another to have power. So as a skeptic like myself who's watching and like, someone's like, just call wisdom, he's giving us 23.2 billion.
But I'll tell you.
What's exactly,
I'll tell you.
Can this work?
The REA, which you've referred to as the Rural Identification Agency, they are working really hard, trust me. And because of them, because of their work, a lot has advanced, especially within the off-grid space. Issue of collection of data and all of those things we need, to show that there's some impact on the sector has indeed advanced. So the REA's work, that agency is in fact at the center of what we need to solve the problem of electrification in Nigeria now. Just yesterday, the president has just now appointed a substantial MD, Mr. Abba, to man the agency as managing director. So there's more work cut out for him. The National Energy Compact that was presented at the summit last week in Dar es Salaam, that agency will be driving a huge part of it, providing mini grids for different communities and all of that, and managing some funding from partners like the World Bank, which they currently are doing, in a huge way. So we need to support that agency much more. I won't lie, because I know a lot in the sector. That agency is working day and night. We need to follow their work. Trust me, you can look them up, the REA, and follow their activities. And I won't hold breath for them, but it's because we see the successes they are making in different ways, because I also play hugely within the off-grid space. So that is where the solution lies. And I like that the government is indeed supporting them. So we need to give them more support. But in the next 5 years, I'm very curious to also see how speedily we can work to close this energy access gap as a country.
Hopefully and with assurance. Thank you very much, Chap.
Thank you.
It's been a Chap Jumbo. Yes. Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Many thanks. We appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much for having me. Pretty much all we can take for this hour. This hour comes to a close. We start up the next hour with news, and Mazzino is on standby. Don't go anywhere. Stay here.
Morning once again and welcome. Let's do the breakfast headlines. My name is Mazzino Appeal. Now, Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reduced the ex-depot price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, from 950 naira to 890 naira with immediate effect. In a statement, the company said the price adjustment is in response to favorable developments in the global energy sector and a significant decline in international crude oil prices. The Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer Anthony Chijina says this latest move follows a similar decision made on 19th of January when a price increase was implemented due to rising crude oil costs. The statement also noted that the price reduction would significantly lower the cost of petrol across the country, generating a positive ripple effect throughout the broader economy. And away from that, the Private Telecommunications and Commissions Senior Staff Association of Nigeria has rejected the planned nationwide protest by the Nigerian Labour Congress over the recently approved 50% increase in Telecom's tariff. In a letter addressed to the NLC leadership, the association argued that the tariff hike, though painful, is necessary to prevent the imminent collapse of the sector. The NLC had earlier rejected the tariff increase, describing it as an additional burden on Nigerians already grappling with rising cost of living. The Labour Union directed its affiliate unions to mobilize members for protests scheduled for February 4th, 2024, or rather 2025. To graph matters now. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ireoluwa, says underdevelopment would be a thing of the past if every citizen sees corruption as a common enemy. Ireoluwa said Nigerians condemn corruption yet rally behind corrupt leaders when they are being prosecuted. He said this while receiving officials of the Center for Crisis Communication, the CCC, led by Chris Olukolade in Abuja. He stated the EFCC will partner to raise public awareness on its activities and the importance of integrity among Nigerians. Now, amid growing global push for the abolition of the death penalty, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, said the decision on whether to abolish death penalty or not ultimately lies with the Nigerian citizens. Speaking when a delegation from the Death Penalty Project led by the officials from the British High Commission visited him, the Deputy Speaker said that there was the need for a robust debate, collaboration and engagement among stakeholders. He said currently over 130 countries around the world have abolished the death penalty either in law or practice. Workers of the Abia State Judiciary on Friday, January 31st, resumed work in compliance with the suspension of the 3-week-old industrial action by the leadership of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria. The chairman and secretary of the union in the state on Thursday issued a press statement informing members to resume duties with immediate effect after receiving all their outstanding salaries from the government. News Central's Chinwe Ogele was at the State High Court in Umuahia and has more.
The entrance gate is open for the first time in 21 working days. Lawyers, magistrates, judges, support staff, and even those standing trial or seeking justice are all shut out of these premises the whole time. On Friday, being the first work day after the suspension of the industrial action by the Judiciary Staff Union in Abia State, life seems to have returned to the State High Court as the security personnel positioned themselves at their duty post with a handful of workers in sight. Cleaning and dusting of the courtrooms and offices are going on. Since the strike is over, judiciary staff have once again become too camera shy and so will not speak about their plight. However, the lawyers willingly share their predicament.
We have lost revenue, we have lost clientele, because most of us do not have any other thing to do apart from this job, upon which is our calling.
It has really affected us because it is from the courts. When we come to the court, we get the money we used to take care of our family.
They are happy that they can access the courts and have their cases handled expeditiously.
Now the court is sectional. I believe that there shall be a lot of improvement based on what was on ground before now. Many people have been languishing in the prison yards and the police cells. If you go to police cell now, everywhere is congested. So we believe that it will help in the speedy dispensation of justice.
People are in the cell. Police are now doing their own bit. Police cannot sit as court. Police cannot sit as the umpire, as the prosecutor, which defeats the terms of justice. But today we are elected, at least we are back to job.
Abia State government is able to avert a major industrial crisis with the fulfillment of the agreement with Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria in the state, but must avoid such friction with any labor union in the future. In Umuahia for News Central, I am Chinwe Ogele.
And now to health matters. Residents of Plateau State will soon heave a sigh of relief from experiences of poor human and material resources in accessing quality healthcare in the state. Rising from a 5-day strategy planning retreat for the management of the Plateau State Specialist Hospital, both the head of service in the state, Stephen Pam, and the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Cletus Shikok, represented at the event, said residents of the state and beyond will begin to enjoy improved healthcare delivery in the state. Our News Central's Chizoba tells us more.
Established in 1933 as a colonial hospital to provide healthcare to the people of the state, the deplorable nature of the hospital began to raise concerns with the displeasure of patients during visitations. The government of Plateau State has charged the management of the hospital to bring on board measures that will complement the recently improved health facility with the state-of-the-art equipment recently installed.
Can we craft the future here? Can we make sure our tertiary healthcare institution, the Plateau State Specialist, takes the lead in crafting this future? With a plan and a blueprint for the future, I think we have started in the right direction. And by doing so, already you're creating a landmark.
The Chief Medical Director of the hospital assures that the essence of the 5-day retreat will yield desired fruits.
We are hoping that at the end of this retreat, we'll be able to have a document, that will not just help us to move in the right direction, but will also make us globally competitive.
For these participants, nothing less of expertise is expected.
Since I started working, I've never had this kind of planning before, and it has actually given us an exposure on how the Plateau State Specialist Hospital can be moved to the future, to be prepared in terms of healthcare delivery.
This workshop is very good because we are all working for the benefit of the patients who are at the center of care. And we want to give them all the care they need, not only for now, but the future.
With the plans that are being churned out and be modified in such a way that the hospital will be at a stage in the next 5 years at a point where globally things that are obtained here could be compared to those that are obtained in other parts of the world. Is really something that is inspiring.
With these assurances, residents of Plateau and beyond can only wait patiently when these words will materialize into actions that can be felt. In Jos, Plateau State for News Central, I am Chizoba Aniwi.
And that's all the breakfast headlines this hour. Do stay tuned because we're still inside of Breakfast Extra and we've got plenty to talk about still. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Breakfast Extra. We continue with our second big story for today. It's the battle between Nigeria's labor unions and economic policies, and it once again is at a boiling point, this time over the proposed 50% hike in telecom tariffs. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has declared a nationwide protest against the increase, arguing that it will further burden struggling Nigerians already grappling with inflation and rising living costs. While the government and telecom operators cite operational costs and currency fluctuations as justification for the hike, labor leaders insist that such an increase is unjustifiable, calling it yet another attack on the people's purchasing power. Now, this standoff has triggered a wave of mixed reactions, while workers and consumer rights groups rally behind the NLC's position. Others, including the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, and telecom workers' unions, have voiced opposition to the planned protest, calling for dialogue instead. It's always dialogue.
Well, to break this down, we're joined by, an expert here, Ireoluwa Oguntuase. a labor expert, and of course he'll be giving us details as to, well, how we will manage or navigate around these called for protests by the NLC. Ireoluwa, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. So, labor movements has historically fought against these kinds of price hikes. How is this one any different? Except, let's also note that this is a commodity that every single person, every single business relies upon. So how is the Labour intending to make sure that this struggle, this protest actually holds ground and creates effect?
Okay, so talking about the issue of protest, I think this is not the right time to go on protest, and I'll tell you why. I think this is the right time to just sit back and let all parties consider their different interests and let all different or conflicting interests be harmonized. Now, what are the issues in this? The issue is very simple. The telecom operators want to increase tariff, and the federal government has approved 50% increase in telecommunications tariff. Now, before then, the operators were asking for 100%. I think the issue here that probably NLC is saying they want to protest is that NLC was not put in the know from the beginning, ab initio. And I think that is where I'll be faulting both the federal government and the telecom operators. Because when we talk about increase, and in the event, in the situation like rightly we're saying now that the increase is going to affect everybody, including employees of labor, that the Nigerian Labour Congress are seeking to protect their interests, given the fact that they're a general union, then it would have behoved on the principal stakeholder, now the telecom operators or the federal government through the Nigerian Communications Commission, to have also communicated to the Nigerian Labour Congress beforehand. They will sit down. The telecom operators will be well represented, and they will do what is called show walking. So when I say show walkings, it's just a colloquial term to justify the increase. Where were you before? Where are you now? If the increase is not done, what is the implication that it will be having for you, for the telecommunication company as a group, for each of the telecommunications operators as a company, and the consequential effect of it? Because I tell you, possibly, I'm not speaking for the telecom operators, but they may come out and say that if this increase is not done, there is a very high likelihood that their companies will fold up. In that situation, that means that their employees would also be thrown into the labor market. If that happens, it's the same Nigerian Labour Congress that would also come out and say they want to protest. So I think along the line, there must have been a misunderstanding. And it is not too late. They can still go back to the drawing board, sit down, instead of Nigerian Labour Congress to say that they want to protest.
Right. Now, just to add to this conversation, to make it more rounded, we're joined by the NLC Lagos State Council Chairman. It's none other than Mrs. Agnes Sessi. Mrs. Agnes Sessi, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. Good morning to you, and a happy Sunday. Now, I want to ask you, the NLC has insisted on a protest, despite some oppositions, and even the NAMS and Telecom Workers Group and Rights Group saying, no, there's no need for a protest. It's high time that there's a hike. What is the union's non-negotiable stance on this issue?
Thank you very much. And I want to use this opportunity to greet all Nigerians and to tell us that this is a situation and this is a critical time in our lives in Nigeria, that we need Nigerians to unite with Labour to come out on February 4th to show our displeasure to this hike in the tariff of telecommunication. If you have to see, virtually everyone in Nigeria who is of age, and even those ones that are the younger ones, they still go around with mobile phones, and that means that we have a huge subscribers, both for calls and also on data. It means before now that these telecommunication companies are talking about loss. They were, posting huge profits in that area. And it's so disheartening that if you want to make an increase, should it not be a gradual process? Why should you jump to 50% at once? And what Nigeria Labour Congress is saying is that we are, we are the voice for the voiceless. We are now fighting for Nigerians. Since those who are supposed to, fight for Nigerians have abdicated their responsibilities. If they have not abdicated their responsibilities, we will not see escalation in the prices of goods and services everywhere. We have been stiffed. We have been, everywhere is so tightened, and Nigerians can no longer breathe. That is why we are showing our displeasure. And this is just a warning protest. It's not the one that we are going to, shut down the whole economy. This one is still a warning protest. And we want to use this medium to tell the government that it will take nothing away from you to listen to Nigerians and the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Listen to us. We are the voices. We are the voice for the voiceless. We represent the Nigerian people.
All right.
And we are saying it that hike in the tariff of telecoms is on the high side. It's not affordable to the ordinary and the poor masses and common man. We are not rich. We are just managing. Even the new minimum wage is not even enough to take us anywhere.
Now,
it's not a living wage, it's a starvation wage. So those who are rich, we are not talking about them. But this time, we are talking about the majority of Nigerians who can no longer afford this kind of situation in the country.
All right, Mr. Sessi, I hear you there on the call for the protest and exactly when it's supposed to happen now. But however, what is the aim of the protest? Who exactly is it targeted at? Is it targeted at the Nigerian government or is it targeted at the telecom operators? These are two different people to target this protest to. Now, if you're targeting the telecoms, you're asking them to totally just reverse the hike from 50% to back what it was. If you're targeting the government, then you're asking them to perhaps maybe change certain policies that will make doing business in Nigeria easier for the telecoms to enable us have affordable tariffs. So which exactly is it? What is the NLC's aim for this protest? Is it at the telcos or is it at the Nigerian government?
Thank you very much. We are targeting the two actors in this illegal situation. We term it as illegal because our voices have to count. Nigerians should not be taken for a ride. Government is acting on our behalf, right? They are, and this is a democratic dispensation. So if truly you are leading us by democratic, you have to also hear our voice. It should be a government of inclusion. That's what we are saying. We are also critical stakeholder in ensuring that the Nigeria, survives and Nigeria run as it should be. So if you cannot shave our head at our back, that's what we are saying. And if you want to bring about some policies, you need to consult widely. You need to take survey. You need to, check some data. How many Nigerians are poor? How many can afford if you bring about 20%, 10%, 50%? We are saying it that we cannot afford that 50%. And let us say that even the telecommunication companies, they are also saying it that the reason why they are increasing is because of the tax hike from government to the telecommunication companies. The government has already increased the taxation or the taxes to the telecommunication. So it's in response to the hike in the tax from the telecommunication company. And they are now passing the buck onto the consumers. So any decision of the government, any government policies, it will still come back to the consumer. And this is it's having its negative toll. It's going to be negative on the poor masses. And that is why we are saying it that enough of all these shenanigans, imperialists and neo-colonialists scripts that our leaders are writing and trying to force down our throat, we are going to reject it. It's no longer going to continue this way. Before now, we have seen the escalation in the prices of virtually everything in this country. The goods that we buy, food, are we talking about the food that we eat? Everything has gone up. Last December, we bought just a bulb of onions for 1,000 naira. How do we survive with that? 1,000 naira for a bulb of onions. And are we talking about meat? Are we talking about fish? Are we talking everything? The rights and the privileges in food has been taken off from Nigerians. Many people can no longer feed very well. The 3 square meal is no longer affordable. Are we talking about transportation that has escalated? Are we talking about rent and accommodation? Are we talking about education? Are we talking about the health sector? Many people can no longer afford their medications. They have health issues. There are underground health issues, and they can no longer afford their medications they have passed on.
All right.
So, and we look at it that the government are supposed to bail us out. They are supposed to. The maladministration of the successive government, is it the handwork of the poor masses? Are we the one in the administration? No.
All right.
So we should not be the one that will continue to suffer all these, past and successive maladministration of those democratically elected governments.
Well, thank you so much for your submission there, Mrs. Sessi. Let me turn to you, Mr. Oguntuase, and ask you, is the telecom operators in their right do they make a valid case for rising the tariffs? I mean, because this has been almost a decade-long journey for them asking for a tariff increment. They've asked for this repeatedly, consecutively for almost a decade. And considering the I won't say dire, maybe the rising cost of living crisis that we found ourselves and the dollar to naira exchange, do they have a valid case for rising it at 50% at this point?
Okay, thanks so much. That's a very good question. Now, whether they have a valid case or not, I think it behooves them to justify the increase. That's very important. Now, what they are saying is that there has been increase in operational costs as a result of high level of inflation, and also they're also looking at the issue of currency devaluation, which has also plagued them. Now, I'm not trying to make a case for them, but if we consider the reason they are adducing for this increase, it is nothing that relates to them at all. For example, if we take the issue of operational costs. Now, the issue of operational costs cannot be separated from inflation. The issue of operational costs that they're experiencing cannot be separated from currency devaluation. Now, we need to understand the fact that even these telecom operators, they're also servicing Nigerians abroad that are still using, their operations, so to speak. So those are the things that needs to be put into focal consideration. But again, beyond this, I think they need to come out, like I said earlier, to practically justify it. And when I say practically justify it, I mean they need to show evidence, come out with figures, come out with amount that shows that if this thing is not done, then they are practically going to go under the drains. Nigerians are not stupid and Nigerians are not dunce. Everybody is experiencing this increase in inflation, which is now at double digits, and the increase in the living cost. So I believe that what the telco operators need to do now is to come out. And again, there is nothing preventing them in not calling Nigerian Labour Congress to a roundtable meeting at this juncture. There's nothing preventing them from not calling Nigerian Labour Congress to a roundtable meeting so that they can seek audience with them. I'm not saying that the 50% increase that they've done is justifiable, and I'm not saying it's not justifiable. But one thing remains sacrosanct. In fact, the position of the law is that he who has sat needs to prove. So they are the ones that is saying that they faced increase as a result of inflation and as a result of operational costs and as a result of currency devaluation. So what I will advise them to do in order to show Nigerians that truly there should be increase is to come out and show it. Now, the representative from Nigerian Labour sector had said that looking at their balance sheet that they've been recording profit. Again, those are the things that needs to be properly placed on the table. If there is any evidence that they've been making profit over the years, they need to come out and show it. If the Nigerian Labour Congress feels that they've been making, the telco operators have been making profit over the years, it's not by word of mouth. These are facts that needs to be properly substantiated so that everybody can understand whether there is a need for an increase or not. And to a very great extent, that's when I think that the issue of protest on the part of NLC can now be justifiable. Because if we look at it, and as a lawyer, I speak, the Nigerian Labour Congress can picket, of course, is part of their right. It's contained in the Trade Dispute Act as a result of trade dispute. They can picket and they can also go on strike. But all these things must be done in due consideration of the law, and they should also consider the interest of the Nigerian citizens as well. So if they claim that they are protecting the interest of the Nigerian citizens, I also believe that there is always opportunity to be heard, and I don't believe in hearsay. If there is a proper meeting, a proper deliberation between the Nigerian Labour Congress and the telco operators, and the Nigerian Labour Congress now feels that, okay, after proper deliberation, we still do not feel justified by the 50% increase because of A, B, C, and D, then the Nigerian populace will see reasons with them and people will support them. It's not, with all due respect, it's not just calling for support, but let it be shown that there is no justification in this increase. That's my position.
Mrs. Sessi, I'd like to come to you with a very interesting note here. Now, I'm wondering what the NLC has done in terms of research when it comes to what obtains in other climes in the world. Oguntuase here has just highlighted the problems that the telcos have to deal with when it comes to giving us service. There's increase in costs. They have to fend for themselves, their power generation and all of that. And of course, things have escalated in the past decade since we had a price hike. However, if you were to take a look at what obtains in other climes, you'd find out that we actually pay less when it comes to telco tariffs than other nations like in the UK or even in the US. So based on that, are we absolutely sure that we are giving a proper benchmark for the telcos when we say they must reduce that tariff hike, total reversal? Are we being fair on the telcos?
Thank you very much. The other speaker, Mr. Oguntuase Barrister, he has just said some of the things that actually are supposed to happen. We're supposed to be on the table where education is key and is power. Once you allow everybody to know and to understand, and it doesn't seem like you are just trying, to bring up some situation in which we believe that you are adding more to our pain. NLC has taken the pain to also make some, verification and compare notes with, with other labor in other climes and other, countries. And we believe, and that is why we are coming out to come and fight for Nigerians. This time it's not about minimum wage or about ourselves. It's about the whole Nigerian that we have come out. And we are saying it that come and show us all the your papers and everything. And let us sit down and let us dialogue, let us discuss. Let us see whether you are justified with any increase at all. Even if there is going to be an increase, must it be 50% at once? We have to see the situation. You have been posting huge profit over the year. How can it now be this year that those huge profits has been eaten up totally by the situation? If we also have to equate Nigeria with America, with United Kingdom, it cannot work because our money is not the same. That's our currency is different. And our currency is, we know what our currency means amongst the committee of other countries. Our currency is nothing to write home about. and it depends on the currency of that country where you are doing your trade. And that is why we are saying it to our those who are representing us at the assembly, that anybody doing their trade in this country, they should do it based on our currency. It's because they are also now tying it to foreign currency. That is why they are now saying that they are not making enough profit, or they are not making profit. They are doing their business here, tying their businesses to dollar rates. It cannot work. Are they tying their business in South Africa to dollar rate? Are they tying it in South Africa to dollar rate? Why are they tying their businesses to dollar rates in Nigeria? So whatever the situation is, the Nigerians are always at the receiving end of negative policies and anti-people's policies.
All right.
And we cannot fold our arms and pretend that all is well, even when we know that all is not well. That is the situation where we are. Don't shave our head at our back. Bring everybody to the table. National Orientation Agency, you have a whole lot of work to do.
Right.
You are supposed to conduct a survey from Nigerians and see and make our voices to count even before you bring up any tax, any increase or whatever in this country. That is where we are.
Many thanks, Mrs. Sessi, for that. Let me come to Mr. Oguntuase and ask. It's very clear from Mrs. Sessi's stance that there's no going back on this, morning strike or this protest or this picketing. I'll leave it at picketing for now. Then what then will be an alternative approach to this for all sides to come to the table? What could be an alternative measure? Is it a government intervention? Is it a subsidy, even though I hate that term? What then can be done so that, the labor unions don't go on the streets?
Okay, so it's a very good question. I think what the government can do is that the government can hijack the protests. And when I say the government can hijack the protest, what I mean, I'm not suggesting anything criminal or anything forceful, excessive, or arbitrary. No, because I also recognize the fact that pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution that talks about freedom of expression, and Section 3 and 4 of the Trade Dispute Act, of course, the NLC are well within their right to protest. But I'm talking about hijacking. If the Minister of Labour and the Minister of Communication calls the NLC president to a roundtable discussion and says, suspend this protest, I know you have a right to protest, suspend this protest, and also call the stakeholders in the telecommunications industry to join this meeting, I believe that the NLC are going to suspend the protest. Now, the reason I'm saying that is this: we just need to find a more creative way at resolving trade disputes. The conventional way of picketing, of going on strike, they've not favored us over time. Now, in this regime, how many times have the Nigerian Labour Congress had gone on strike? And to what extent have they been able to realize the purpose in which they go on strike? I believe that if you want to adopt a procedure, you should analyze that procedure, analyze that strategy in the light of you've used that strategy over time. How productive the strategy has been. So how productive picketing has been, how productive strike has been. For me, and with all due respect to the representative of the Nigerian Labour Congress, I don't think those two strategies have been extremely productive as they were. In fact, if I may recommend now, I will recommend that compulsorily in the Trade Dispute Act, in the Labour Act, I will recommend that compulsorily before the representative of Labour proceed to protest, there shall be mediation. There shall be a sort of negotiation between the two parties. And there's a semblance of that provision in the Trade Dispute Act. So I also think, with all due respect, that the Nigerian Labour Congress should also avail themselves of the clear provisions of the Trade Dispute Act, because these provisions are what regulate their actions. Now, like I said, I validated their protest, but to what extent are they going to achieve this? They will come out and protest. This is not the first time they will be doing it. This is not the second time. This is not the third time. And I've told you, Nigerians are not dumb. They are not stupid. And that's why you see that some of the Nigerians are supporting this proposed increase in the telco tariff. But again, there is also possibility, or there are possibilities that the telco may also use it for their own advantage. And that's why I support a roundtable discussion, that everything will be discussed, the meeting will be televised, and there will be time paper for the meeting as to reveal what the parties agree on. Is this not more creative than just going around protesting? For me, I think it is. And I think at this juncture, that is what the federal government should do.
Ireoluwa, may I ask once again regarding the efforts the federal government can put in to help the situation? Do you think that adjusting the policies, removal of taxes for the telcos could help the situation whereby the tariffs are not hiked, but they have a better environment?
No.
Do you think this is an option so that the bulk of the cost is not passed on to the consumer? Ireoluwa, what do you think? Yeah. Is this possible, is the question. Do you think that this is possible? Because Mrs. Sessi noted a factor here where she talked about the fact that the monies are being repatriated back to countries and in fact it's being benched across the dollar. So if we remove all of these little niggling issues, do you think that it will help the situation?
Of course it's true. I totally believe that it's going to, because I said earlier, that the reason the telcos are proposing for increasing the tariff, it is not unconnected with what is happening in the country currently. Now, we need to understand that the telcos are also employers of labor. They pay salary, they incur expenses in order to ensure that we enjoy this thing. I'm not justifying them, and I'm not validating the reason they want to increase. But if the government, like you rightly said, can also do something in order to make the business environment convenient for them, I think that's a proper way we need to put it. And in making the business environment convenient for them, the government should also call them and ask them, what are the challenges that you're facing in this environment that is now enabling you, that is pushing you to say that you want to increase the tariff? And for all these things, but you will recall that I'd already identified inflation, and I'd already identified currency devaluation. Now, those things are challenges that government may not be able to solve because inflation is general. It affects everything. So it may not be what the government can solve at the moment, but there should also be cushion. And another thing the government can do is probably to propose suspension. Give us like 3-4 months in order to see whether we can find a solution to this issue. If we cannot find a solution to this issue, then that may now justify the increase. I think that's another thing the government can do. But generally, I feel that making the business environment convenient for the telcos would also reduce or stem the tide of this push for an increase in telecommunication tariff.
Okay, then. Well, Mr. Oguntuase and Mrs. Sessi, we would like to say thank you both for actually joining us this morning to give us your bits on the issue here. We hope that this is resolved so that we can all make better calls and, of course, cheaper ones as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Thanks so much.
We urge Nigerians to join us.
I'm going to church now, and I will pray that the Nigerian Labour Congress didn't protest, and the telcos also, they should also reduce their tariff. Because I cannot be buying 10,000 for 10,000 for something that is very low. I'm going to church now to pray that God should please help us.
They have tried so that they can negotiate and dialogue with us. But when it fails, we use the instrument that we have. And that instrument, this is the first of the instrument before we go on total blackout.
Okay.
Shut down. Thank you.
Shut down communications. Thank you very much. Judith, it's left with you and I have something to tell you about this one. And I've been keeping this for a minute. I didn't want to interfere in the submissions of our guests, but I will tell you one thing. Maybe I should let you go first.
No, you go ahead.
Are you sure?
Don't mind Matthew.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is what I think. I love communication, and I think everything I've done in the past 2 decades of being in media has been because, well, it's communication. I think communication is a big part of humanity, and if you restrict communication, then you are lessening development. I, however, believe that it costs money to be able to communicate effectively. We've seen this before where the telcos came into Nigeria and the tariffs were very high. But because of competition, it started to come down, and their service was spotless. It was beautiful. It was interesting. You could go on the internet and there was no buffering time. I'm talking about before. I'm talking about, yes, it was. It was. But recently what we've noticed is that the communications industry has been fraught with so much, bad service. Even their customer care is horrible. Obviously, they might not be getting paid enough. How do I know this? I used to work in telecommunications. I know how glorious it used to be. It was a beautiful thing.
It was not.
And if I told you how much we earned 15 years ago, 10 years ago? 10 or 15 years ago, compared to what is being earned now in the telco industry, you would be surprised that it's actually gone down instead of going up. So I do understand the stresses that they are going through and the stresses that are causing these stresses for the telcos. And I honestly just simply want to be able to communicate effectively, easily about the cost. I will pay good money to get good service. And if you take a look at this and the factors around it, and even if you compare this to other climes outside of the country, you'd find out that they pay so much for electricity, pay so much taxes for this and that, and they get it. It affects your mind in a way that you have not experienced. If everything comes easy to you, then trust me, your standard of living becomes so robust, your mind begins to think better. You're able to perform effective businesses or transactions and all of that, and you don't have to worry about these services going down. Pay good money, get good service. I'm of that group of people that think that if we pay more, we'll get better service. And come at me with your pitchfork and everything, but I think perhaps
so you're
maybe
for
let's
the
just.
50%
I'm for the increase. I am for the increase.
All right, I'm against it. So I am against it. They keep, Matthew, please stop talking in my ear. So I'm for it. I'm against it. But I will say this, right? In 2024, which was last year, Nigeria's telecommunication market was projected to earn about $18.8 billion in revenue. Now, this was expected to be driven by mobile data, which is the tariff that you pay for data, which was projected to earn $12.4 billion. The telecommunications sector in Nigeria is a major source of revenue for the country's economy. In fact, it contributes about 16% of Nigeria's gross domestic product, which is our GDP. And that's only for the last quarter of 2024. It went from contributing 7.6% in GDP in 2014, 10 years ago, to nearly doubling that amount by a decade later to 14.58% just in the first quarter of 2024. So I say all of this to say that I think that the service has not increased. What has increased is data depletion. Because if you look at how much we spend on data in a day, or better yet, in a month, it is expensive. It has doubled over time, but yet the services still suck. Yet we still have to pay more for data because of data depletion, and they tell you it's fast. I don't think it's fast. What I think it is that you are ripping off your customers. Because if you were to compare it with the same UK and the US and the West South Africa and the other nations, they get to pay one time for access to that data, and you don't hear, Madam, your data are finished, resubscribe again. I would have to pay 15 gigabytes on both phones, plus the one at home, and it still finishes. And what they tell you is, turn off all your running data in the background. It is data depletion at best. They have found ways to cut costs, and they have found ways to make their revenue. So it's not about 50% tariff increment. It's about whether or not the coverage is good, whether or not I'm getting value for money, and whether or not my voice calls, the voice and data is actually, the service is being rendered well. Because in my father's village, like I've said, there's only one telecommunication that is working there. The rest is not working. So much for everywhere you go. So I say all of this to say, we don't need 50% increment. How about you get the job well done, stop with the data depletion, and then we can talk.
Oh, we're being asked to round off, but I have so much to say on that one, Judith. I don't know if they'll let me. Have you counted how many towers you find in the vicinity?
It's not enough.
Not enough. You can't even. How do they fuel these towers? They're all run by generators.
Again, they are making profits. That's why I established.
Or diesel.
That's why I established.
Price of operation.
That's why I established that they are making profits. Then, if they keep saying this overhead cost operational things, they are making profit. They make profit. In one quarter alone, 14.8%.
And I hear you what
contribution
you
to
say
our
about the
GDP.
stats. Now, that behooves the government to do something. It's the government now that we should be actually picketing, not the telcos.
Right.
The reason
So-
because the government can actually like make tax refunds.
Who agreed to the 50% increment? Who agreed to it? It's the government. They were the ones who, because it didn't at first.
We're being sung out of the studio. We're being told that we must move on, but this is not going to end here, Judith. It's not going to end here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's calm down on that conversation.
Oh, calm away.
But we're still going to fight over this
Rest.
one. Let's introduce to you and bring on our Weekend Warrior segments. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about who it's going to be today. Now, history often hides the heroes in plain sight, their contributions woven so seamlessly into our daily lives that we forget to look back and acknowledge the hands that actually shapes them. Now, one such hero is the late Pa Michael Taiwo Akinkunmi, the man who in 1959 designed the Nigerian flag, a national symbol that has endured through decades of change, struggle, progress, and price hikes. Let's also add that one there.
So as a young student in Ibadan, he saw a newspaper advertisement calling for flag designs for Nigeria's impending independence. So he was inspired by the country's rich agricultural heritage and its desire for peace. And so with that, he sketched what would become our tricolor emblem, the two bold green stripes flanking a pure white center. That flag was officially hoisted on October 1st, 1960, representing the British Union Jack and replacing, I beg your pardon, the British Union Jack and marking Nigeria's birth as a sovereign nation. It was a moment of national pride, and Pa Akinkunmi's name should have been forever etched in the annals of our greatest patriots.
Indeed, it should have. But this past week, the Nigerian government finally took a step, albeit a posthumous one, towards recognizing his legacy, presenting 30 million naira to his family as a token of appreciation. They were very specific to mention that. Government officials praised his contributions, lauding his place in history and acknowledging that his work will continue to inspire generations. It was a noble gesture, let's not forget, but one that raised uncomfortable questions, like what would this recognition have meant for Pa Akinkunmi while he was still alive? For most of his later years, he lived quietly, struggling with illness and financial hardship, far from the national spotlight that his iconic creation so often stood. His family, while expressing gratitude for the support, they couldn't ignore the fact that this tribute could have been far more meaningful had it come in his lifetime. Why do we always wait until our heroes are gone before we sing their praises? It's a question that people are asking since that 13 million naira was actually presented to the family.
And here we are. So let's take solace in the fact that his legacy is finally receiving some of the honor it deserves. We only hope that this is not the beginning of another slow erasure of our national identity, lest the flag he so proudly designed finds itself replaced, like our national anthem, just as we recently saw with our national anthem, of course, which, let's be honest, many of us are still struggling to relearn.
I'm not going to put you on the spot here, Judith, don't worry.
You'll be very surprised.
But no matter what the future holds, one thing remains certain. Pa Akinkunmi's place in history is undeniable. His vision captured in those simple but very profound colors, which will forever symbolize the nation's unity, resilience, and also hope. And for that, we as well posthumously thank him for his service. Pa Michael Taiwo Akinkunmi, this week, we salute you as our Weekend Warrior. Thank you very much.
Weekend Warrior,
Beautiful.
indeed.
Absolutely.
I didn't forget him because it was drummed in our ears during our citizenship classes and social studies classes.
Simple design. Green, white, green,
classic
agriculture,
symbol.
hope, peace.
And with
Fantastic.
is ours the most simple? Yes, I think
It
ours
must
is
be the
most-
simplest African flag. Yeah, it must be the simplest African flag. Let's think about it.
No, not just African, like
In the world?
In the world.
Well, let's start with Africa. I can't think of a simpler.
which
but
one has
more,
a star in the middle that's just one color?
Many. In Africa,
I think, is it?
star in the middle, one color. The black star has 3 colors. That's 4 colors actually, so it's not that one.
No, it's not.
I can't.
With the crescent, the half crescent.
It'll have to be in the north.
Is this Saudi Arabia?
Is this that's not Africa?
I said in the world.
In the world. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there's the rising sun for Japan. If that's the one.
I like that one. Yeah, I like that one.
There are others that are simple as such, I guess. But
Yeah, I like
Nigerian
that one.
flag is just simple and recognizable. Any single place that you go, wherever you go, Nigerians are simply everywhere, whether you like it or not. In any case, yes, once again, we want to say thank you to Pa Kinkumi for his devotion and dedication. Let's do a break now, because I have to skedaddle to go bring you the strips. We'll be back in a minute. Boom, TV magic, I'm here. I'm not here alone. Judith's still going to be joining me for the strips as we bring them to you. Art, well, kind of like being depicted, or rather life being depicted in art form, but always very meaningful, just so that you can laugh a little with all this doom and gloom. And so we have a segment called the strips. So let's bring you our very first strip for today. It's going to be a very interesting one. Judith, I don't know if you've been monitoring the strips. They have been taking on a very strong tone of life. Ta-da! Business Day has a very interesting depiction of the migration that's happening, not out of Nigeria, but out of our pockets. Poor Nigerians with empty plates, and everything on here, if you see the labels, there's rice, there's healthcare, there's gari, even common gari, everything from plantain to yam and all of that. Cooking gas, which I had to buy yesterday for 16,000 naira, 16,500 naira, which increased from 14,500 naira. So that's 2,000 naira increase in the past 3 weeks. I don't know about you, what you've realized took an increase in the past couple of, well, since 2025. Judith, what did you notice? Apart from the hike in tariff for Telecom, what else?
Transportation? I still at an all-time high. I still get to pay 450% more than I normally would for those ride-hailing apps.
Get a bike.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean, like, yeah.
But has food increased? Has food increased?
Yeah, well, we're on a diet, Mazzino.
My story is this.
Like, you know what I mean?
So I have 3 wraps of amala at this very delicious place I eat at in Festac sometimes. 3 wraps of amala. But lately I've had to start buying 5 wraps of amala because the quantity has been reduced. So I guess food has increased.
What are you talking about?
Don't buy turkey.
Is your math upside down?
My
3
math?
to 5?
Oh, say again?
You said 3 and then 5.
No, I used to buy 3, now I have to buy 5.
Oh, because it shrunk.
It's shrunk,
inflation.
exactly.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So, in any case, we have very little time, so let's take another strip. Let's see how many we can accommodate, because I have a very interesting one. From the Guardian newspaper over the week, check this out. They've named the Barrack Polytechnic Library and Parkway after our governor. So, what next? This is interesting. There's hunger in the land. I hear some people will soon name a mortuary after him. This coming with the current spate of infrastructure being named after whether governors or the president or the president's wife, Ms. Remi Tinubu, if I'm not mistaken, was a library in her case. But then again, there's too much focus on these renamings. We really need food in our stomachs, money in our pockets, and light in our, I was going to say generators, but light in our homes. So I think that the refocus needs to happen sometime soon. I won't let you talk about this one. I'll let you talk about the next one, Judith, just a second. Let's move on to this one. Now, the man of the moment who's been in the news for all week, last week, sure, a police for future arrest claim insists IG's tenure legal. IGP there, I don't know what the glue is and why there's a tiger tail behind him, but obviously he's not going anyplace because he's tethered to that chair. No place for you, sure, that might be your place. What did you think, Judith? Did you think that he was simply just being a troublemaker, just simply trying to remain relevant in the consciousness of people because of his political aim? Or do you think that he had relevant submissions when he talked about the eligibility of the IG?
So, I don't want, my brain is doing nothing again. So, let me say this and say that sometimes activism sounds like trying to be relevant. It's just what it is. He's always been an activist. Omoyele Sowore, as a man, when you look at his histories, he's always and forever been an activist. He's always and forever is a rebel rouser, if you will.
Rebel rouser.
And, so I wouldn't say that his activism is him trying to stay relevant, because we've seen, and from his bio and what he's done, that that's who he is I mean, he has a newspaper publication website.
You don't think his antics are a tool to just stay relevant?
So his character, which is a rebel rouser, is a completely different conversation. But he has always been an activist before he became a politician. So I don't know if that's antics. It's just him being an activist. Then on the flip side of it, his comments about the IG. I remember when we were talking to Joshua yesterday. He made mention that the part of him saying that the age matter was not even read out in court during the proceedings. And what he raised is not new.
Well, about the age, that was non sequitur. I mean,
yeah,
he's in his tenure, and he will finish it even if he crosses into 60.
No, what I'm saying is that age discussion and that tenure discussion and whether or not he should have retired was always an argument, like in the political narrative and sphere and the media. Critics of this government and what they have done and their policies have argued that, Adebayo ought to have resigned and ought to have stepped down or ought to not even be in that position. And that's a conversation that's been had. And I remember yesterday during our Sunny Rebel Live here on News Central Television when we were interviewing the now very free, famous human rights activist as well, none other than, his name escapes my mind, forgive me.
Soweto? We're talking about Soweto?
No.
Okay. But go on.
The author of Nigeria and its corrupt judicial system. Forgot. Yeah.
Farotimi then.
Yeah, there we go. Farotimi also said the same thing. That what he said is not new. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that's been had. So I don't see what he said that means that he's trying to be relevant.
For me, it's how the case took on very many dimensions, from cyberbullying to this and that and everything. It was hard to keep track of exactly why was he being invited by the police. Why is he in court? What did he do? Was it that he defamed the police IG, or was it that it was a case of cyberbullying regarding the police and the video that he made? It's just confusing. Well, whatever the case, it put him in the limelight for an entire week. We talked about him. So he's still very relevant as a spokesperson for the Nigerian people, in quote.
I mean, somebody's got to do it, isn't it? And like when you think about it in and of itself, somebody's got to do it.
So these are tools being put in place, if you get what I mean. I mean, you call him all other names, but I think that he's just very intelligent and keeping himself relevant for when it matters. As an activist, you need to be out there.
Would you say the same for Peter Obi?
Well, activism is not exactly how I define Peter Obi. I think he's just a movement on his own, whether he likes it or not. Right. Peter Obi is just a unit, a very formidable movement. And whether we like it or not, people will do that activism for him.
Right, but he makes statements, at a very crucial time. If something's going on, he always puts out statements.
Very educated statements.
All right.
When it comes to Peter Obi, and I don't have any political affiliation. I don't support him or anything. But I'm just saying that he's very educated. He's very, very. He has substance in the data that he puts out when he speaks.
So the approach is the problem here.
Not just the approach, but the definition of it. The fact that Peter Obi will tell you stuff that have backings, that have detailed stats and backings and all. He doesn't just speak from out of there. And I'm not saying I'm not disreputing anybody else.
Right.
But I'm just saying.
Other persons will argue that. I know. Another person will argue that that a character like Shore is needed. You need someone who is bold and brash and is in their face. Because he's an activist.
For the sake of ending this segment, Judith, I agree with you, but I don't really. Well, let's end the strips here on that very exciting note, because we still have the news and other conversations to happen inside of Breakfast Extra. We'll be back.
If you guys can hear me, I'm deaf. I can't hear.
We'll be back. And welcome back. Unfortunately, we won't be bringing you the news this hour. However, we'll be moving straight into a very interesting topic inside of our Wellness Central segment. Now, every year, February 4th marks World Cancer Day, a global movement to raise awareness, improve education, and also drive action against one of the world's deadliest diseases, cancer. Cancer remains a silent killer, crippling into millions of lives without discrimination, affecting families, economies, and healthcare systems. Despite medical advancements, it continues to be a leading cause of death worldwide. This year's campaign focuses on closing the care gap, ensuring that access to cancer prevention, early detection, and also treatment is not a privilege, but a right for all. While awareness has grown over the years, myths, fears, and stigma still clouds conversations about the disease, making it crucial to break the silence and discuss it openly. From groundbreaking research in molecular biology to cutting-edge immunotherapy and precision medicine, the fight against cancer has seen remarkable progress. Yet the battle is far from over. Many still lack access to affordable screening and also life-saving treatments. There are also growing concerns about lifestyle factors, environmental risks, and also even genetic predisposition that makes some populations more vulnerable than others.
So as we observe World Cancer Day, it is important to ask, what are we getting right? And also, where are we still falling short? And how close are we to a future where cancer is no longer a death sentence? To help us navigate these questions, we're joined by Dr. Babatunde James. He's a molecular biologist who will provide expert insights on cancer, its preventions, and the hope science offers and the fight against it. Sir, many thanks for joining us. Thank you for doing this with us on a Sunday morning.
Good morning. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Cancer is often called a silent killer, although some persons have survived it. Why is it so difficult to detect, cancer in its very early stages?
So, thank you very much. Most of the time, we are familiar with a lot of communicable diseases, and when we have fever, we associate it with malaria. And many times the fevers that we have, or some sort of pains that we have, are not actually associated with malaria. And so detection becomes a problem because, attitudes, seeking healthcare, seeking attitude, probably due to cost, is a bit low in this part of the world. And by the time we are supposed to have detected at its early form, it's a bit late. And despite that, people try to use lots of alternative but not verified or validated care processes that then makes it a bit challenging when they present, to the hospitals for proper care. So, we need to go around in talking about education, awareness, letting people know that cancer is real, and screening, early detection helps, prevention, and also treatment. And that's why we have the World Cancer Day, and which came about in one of the meetings in Paris in year 2000, and ever since then, they've had several terms for different years for cancer, just to raise awareness and to encourage its prevention and detection and also its treatment. Thank you.
Dr. James, I don't think there's a better person to ask this next question because it's on a molecular level and you're a molecular biologist. Now, while we're doing research for this conversation, I came across something that really worried me, and it's the fact that some people are biologically predispositioned to actually get cancer. So this is besides the habits that we have or maybe things that we've been exposed to environmentally. Some people will just have it because they're predisposed, so by heritage or because of their lineage. So because of this, how much worry does that put on us as people when it comes to being aware that we might need to go for screening? What might make us aware of the fact that we are predisposed biologically?
Yeah, so thank you for this question, because the truth is that everything about cancer has to do with genetic basis, from the DNA being altered. And that's what makes it very difficult, because our DNA is like your computer program, and once the binary codes, I've said this in different, once the binary codes are altered, we begin to complain that the computer is malfunctioning, and exactly what happens in the case of cancer. So what happens in cancer is that we have uncontrolled, cells, usually cells grow over time, and when cells grow, there are precautionary measures, designed to manage the growth of cells, to halt those cells, when they reach, their maturation stages, thereby differentiated. So I like to use this analogy to explain this concept. Take for instance, we were all children, kids, growing up. Some people will say we had juvenile delinquencies because we had not differentiated into experts. So let's look at an area. Let me use an area X, and you have lots of young persons, grown, you can't, just keep growing, not differentiating into specialized skills. Cells will grow to differentiate into specialized skills and form different systems, and support different systems in the body. But in the case of cancer, these cells just grow, they don't get specialized. They can grow uncontrollably in an area. Take, for example, a bus stop or a junction where you have boys just keep growing, no work, unspecialized. What do you think would happen? They will create a lot of havoc. So that's the same for cancer cells. They grow uncontrollably, and because of that, or probably the mechanisms to control their growth, have been damaged. And that damage occurs at the DNA level. So if someone is, whether somebody is genetically predisposed or probably inherited it, cancer has a genetic, origin from the DNA. So, and how do we arrive at this? For those who probably did not inherit it, the aspect of prevention is very key. And in the aspect of prevention, it is multi-sectoral. And what I mean by that is, it's not just the responsibility of the doctors alone, to probably create awareness for prevention. Most of the time we use, lots of chemicals. How do we dispose our chemicals? So some people will say, I don't manufacture chemicals, but we use makeups, we use creams, with all sorts of formulations. We use chemicals for cleaning, all sorts of formulations. We use chemicals to do a lot of things. And these things, we wash them away into our environment. They get into our drinking water system. We drink them back. And some of these things goes to, affect or damage the DNA at some point, even though the DNA tries to repair itself. But if that level of destruction is more than what it can repair, of course, at some point it may give up and we have some form of damage or some altered DNA status, which then leads to cancer. Another point is we get exposed to all sorts of radiations at times. Some people use some plastic consumables. We dispose them, indiscriminately. They get into wastewater systems. They fill our oceans, eaten by fishes. We get all sorts of, polyhydrocarbons that causes, adducts that still goes back to affect the DNA. And hence, the cells becomes, they can't control their growth anymore, or some of the kind of air pollutants we expose ourselves to, or the things we smoke, when they say, oh, try and minimize smoking, or avoid smoking if you can, in fact. So some of the products of the smokes, will cause DNA adduct that goes to the lung. So for this year's World Cancer Days theme, which is United by Unique, so which places people's uniqueness, people's story. Like I have my cancer story. I have a story of somebody who thought she had arthritis. And whereas she died of lung cancer, was she a heavy smoker? No. But she was a heavy incense burner, in a regular prayer, programs. And I also have somebody who had it, and just by seeking healthcare, she had a very terrible type, and thankfully she saw a doctor, and the doctor was like, "Thank God you came in early." And she said, "Oh, I would take natural herbs." And the doctor was able to tell her the fact that, "Madam, if you go for those herbs and this thing spread to other regions of your body, you may not have more than 6 months." But the person is living for almost 4 years now. So the prevention aspect is everybody's responsibility. We all need to take charge of our lives. We've caused a lot of imbalances in the ecosystem. This has happened. However, where do we go from here? So what we now advocate is, awareness campaigns, because cancer is growing, in everywhere in the world. The numbers, I don't want to use scientific terminologies, but the numbers are really growing at an alarming stage. And we also have some infectious agents that can also enhance, the uncontrolled growth of cells, such as HPV, human papillomavirus. Yeah.
I want to ask about, we just talked about the genetics and how it plays a role in being susceptible to cancer. But what about some misconceptions that people have about cancer? I would like for you to address that. What are some common misconceptions about cancer that you have heard or you believe should be debunked?
Summarily, please.
So the most common one is spiritual attack. Like it's a spiritual attack. It is just the boil, you know. So those are the most common ones that we've heard. You know, very common. You know, people say it's a spiritual attack, and you know, before you know it, you know, it becomes a problem. But reiterating again, early detection can save lives, and this awareness campaign that your organization is doing would help a lot.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that one. Now let's talk about advancements in treatment and medicine and all of that. You're advancing that in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. However, how far have we gone? There's been so much put into cancer research, and we're wondering exactly where does all the money go? Are we seeing our Nigerian endeavors actually make the light of day? Has it gotten easier to treat cancer, especially in Nigeria? Do we have the systems? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the knowledge? Or have they all migrated out of Nigeria? I know this picture you're about to paint is going to be grim, but let's have it honestly.
So interestingly, I don't think the picture is grim because cancer is a problem everywhere in the world. And the government has put in place what is called the National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment, which is NICRAT. And they have a very robust strategic cancer control plan. And I'm aware that they are building big, massive centers of excellence. And I guess it's going to happen in probably the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. However, in terms of research, treatment, we also have a lot of heroes, you know, both from the survivors and the doctors as well, you know, helping to fight this. On our own part, we are trying to ensure that people can have access to genetic testing, because once you can discover that or identify the genetic mutations associated, you could have what someone like Angelina Jolie had, which is not something I'm prescribing, you know, probably prophylactic surgery in our case, or probably, you know, you're predisposed. You can begin to go for regular checkups or regular, you know, testing to be sure that you're protected, especially for the men above 40. You can just do simple PSA tests for women. You can go for your breast examinations and mammogram. But we also have some other very challenging cancer cases coming up, such as cancer of the stomach, pancreatic cancer, which in the case of pancreatic cancer, you feel the person has diabetes, and before you find out, you know, it's spread to some other parts of the body. So genetic testing will help a lot, and the government is doing a lot to see that this can come around. However, these approaches are very expensive anywhere in the world. Some of the drugs, there are new drugs in developed countries that are expensive as $200,000, $400,000, you know, per course, you know, of treatment. And these are highly specialized targeted therapies. So the world is trying to move to, since it's a genetic, you know, issue, and we have unique genetic makeup. So scientists are trying to build, you know, new therapies that are, you know, tailored, you know, to your specific genetic nature. And these treatment processes are very expensive. But efforts are ongoing to see how some of these treatments can come to this part of the world. Probably through clinical trials or through some other processes, but a lot is being done. The fight is a continuous fight, and we believe that the more we fight it together, we can reduce the burden of cancer in our environment. Thank you.
You said something in your earlier submission of how the cases of cancer seem to be increasing over the years. I wonder if there's environmental factors that has to play with this, with climate change that we're seeing, the rising water levels. You know, is it our food? Is it our lifestyle? Is it the, I mean, I don't know why the Gen Z think it's okay to smoke. I don't get it. Millennials didn't smoke, but Gen Zs, we're seeing a high number of them vaping and smoking as well. And so what is that factor? What's the contributing factor behind the numbers that we're seeing?
A lot has been associated with, aside from genetic predisposition, which is very key. A lot has been associated with environmental factors and our lifestyles. Cancer is like I said, when the cells grow uncontrollably, but if they are localized in a particular region, we can call them a tumor. Let's say those I wouldn't like to use this word, Agnes, those thugs, localized in a region. You can remove them, right, and end it there. But by the time one of them spreads to another region and begin to establish his own kingdom and, creates more problems, then you can begin to have systemic problems in the area. So with environmental factors, our food, we use a lot of chemicals, preservatives now in our foods. Like I said earlier, we take a lot of, chemicals even on our body. People trying to use some corticosteroids, which may also enhance growth of cells, by just thinking, I want to bleach and look fairer. These are some of the problems. Then two, these cells require a lot of energy, a lot of fuel, right? So lifestyle as well. So some people encourage that you starve these cells energy, meaning reduce probably sugar intake, exercise, regularly, reduce alcohol intake. Some people will say, oh, alcohol is not sugar. No, it's not sweet. But alcohol via its metabolic processes will be converted into fuel. And this fuel will then go into those cells and allow them to grow, rapidly. These are cells. I know most of the time when you see the stalks, they are big, they are huge. They are bigger than normal cells, and which makes them requiring all types of fuel they can get to support themselves. So one way to use our lifestyle to minimize, some of these challenges is by, starving those cells fuel. Some people have recommended some form of intermittent fasting, regulating your sugar, the milk, all sorts of growth enhancing drugs or food that we take. And so these are some of the factors that we have. But to be honest, it's difficult. I've had 2 cups of tea this morning with sugar and milk, and I'm like, oh my God. So what I would say again is that early detection helps, regular screening helps, so that once you have them localized, you can remove them and
Dr. James,
you can keep enjoying your life. Thank you.
Dr. James, you said something earlier that stuck with me. You talked about early detection. You talked about the fact that we must screen. But these screenings are not cheap, are they? Could you give us an idea of what it takes to walk into a center and get screened financially?
To be honest, I think the screenings are cheaper than the cost of treatment. And if we weigh the cost of our lives, with the cost of screening, you would agree with me that screening is very cheap, compared to the cost of treatment. And because once one has an advanced stage of cancer, lifestyle, you can't walk again. You can't enjoy your regular lifestyles that you're enjoying. So obviously screening is cheaper. However, some of those screening, like your PSA test, it's not too expensive. It's very cheap. They have some strips, that are as low as 10,000 naira. And maximally, maybe you're paying 30,000 naira for PSA. For mammogram, there are some places. There are some even organizations that conduct free screening around. There are several organizations doing a great job. I wouldn't like to mention their names here, doing free awareness and cancer screening programs, but they are not as expensive as the cost of treatment. So if you're spending less than 50,000 naira for screening or 100,000 naira maximally, I think it's worth going for. However, the cost of screening for genetic testing that we are trying to put into our society is a bit high for now. And the reason why it's high, because it's expensive everywhere in the world. In other climes or other places, you have the insurance helping you to pay for that. But in our environment, we do a lot of out-of-pocket payments, and even most of these tests are not on the insurance testing list. So nonetheless, in summary, a screening is cheaper than the cost of treatment. Thank you.
And then what's the way forward for us? Healthcare is our healthcare system. Let's not even get started. It's primary healthcare system that is doing its best. Our doctor-to-patient ratio is by far one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the world. And so how can we as Nigeria, I mean, let's just put Nigeria in the center here, and with all of our misconceptions, our religious beliefs and cultural beliefs, and just the stigma around healthcare and cancer and even sicknesses that one does not understand, and the religion where people go to healing centers. The question is, how best can we do, how can we push the envelope, for healthcare in this part of the world? Is it public-private partnerships? Is it more sensitization, the part of the government? What can we do to push the envelope?
Thank you very much. So one way, like I said earlier, way forward is a collective approach. Fighting cancer, it's a multi-sectoral approach. It's not only for the doctors. You have physicists involved, you have biochemists, you have virologists, you have everybody involved. You have environmentalists, you have sociologists. So one key thing, like you said, is to raise the awareness. But I must say something that some persons may not agree with. I don't think the fight is for the government alone. In countries where they have high success rates, you have a lot of donations from private individuals into cancer research in billions of dollars, giving so much, encouraging scientists to develop new drugs, develop new treatment processes. The government is just there to regulate the environment, not providing all the funds required, because you will stretch the government if you have to ask the government for everything. So all of us have to do our own bit. Like the person who pours, the chemical waste, untreated chemical waste into the environment, that's your own little bit. You are doing your bit by creating awareness, and people are listening and getting educated. For those who seek alternative but unvalidated treatment processes, I'm not saying they don't work, but my challenge with them is, where are the validations? Who have done the verifications of those treatments? Please, I would strongly recommend seek proper health, guidance. Visit a physician, a physician who can help you. You can then, because they have, verified and validated processes in handling all of these cases. So, and lastly, we need to do all our bits, put in the best that we can, in our own ways, our lifestyle, properly manage our lifestyle, meaning take away smoking, if you can, the consumption of alcohol, you can have it in moderation if you can. There are some infectious diseases that we can prevent, like that can lead to cervical cancer, like I said, human papilloma virus. There are vaccines, that can help prevent that. And I know a lot of groups are doing a lot in creating awareness towards this. Please encourage, sexually active young persons, before they become sexually active, let them have these vaccines. Hepatitis B virus is spreading like wildfire, which can lead to liver issues that can then maybe lead to liver cancer. Of course, you can get vaccinated for some of those things. Okay. So these are some of the things we can do. So it is a collective approach, not one approach or a singular approach from one person. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Babatunde Wole K. James, I want to say thank you very much for being a part of the show today. Obviously, one segment is not enough to... I can tell there's so much more that needs to be discussed, but thank you for loaning us the past 20 minutes to give us more education on the issue of cancer in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome back. Now, in a world grappling with conflict, division, and deep-seated inequalities, World Fertility Day serves as a reminder of the need for unity, understanding, and peaceful coexistence. Recognized annually, the day emphasizes the importance of mutual respect across religious, cultural, and even national lines, promoting a vision where diversity is not a source of conflict, but a strength to be embraced. From local communities to international relations, fraternity plays a crucial role in shaping societies that prioritize dialogue over discord. However, achieving true coexistence requires more than just symbolic gestures. It demands structural changes in economic policies, governance, and even cultural interactions. Africa presents a complex case study in this regard. The continent embodies rich cultural and ethnic diversity, yet it remains plagued by divisions, some rooted in history, others fueled by contemporary political and economic struggles. Nowhere is this more evident than in the Sahel region, where a distinct bloc of military-led governments stands in contrast to the democratic frameworks upheld by neighboring West African states.
And even here in Nigeria, when we come to look at it, different tribes, different languages. The question is, can Africa truly embrace fraternity when governance models remain at odds? Well, to explore these pressing questions, we have joining us Isaac Itwa. He's a life coach and, of course, is very, very adept when it comes to topics about fraternity, friendship, people, communication. Isaac, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on.
Good to have
Thank
you here.
you.
Now, I know that you understand this from a different level that we do, how friendship actually benefits, whether it's individuals, whether it's communities, tribes, states, nations, and the political communications that goes in there. But how important is it for us as individuals to first off notice that we need to create that environment for fraternity and continue to make it foster, make it grow? Judith, I think, is that right? Grow?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mazina. Thank you again.
Thank you for being here.
It's a very, very exciting topic. Looking at it, I like to come from an angle of being definitive. Fraternity as it is, gotten from the Latin word frata, which literally means brotherhood.
Oh.
You would see that is embedded in our culture as Africans, as it is, the level of Ubuntu, as they call it. It's very essential because humans are naturally social beings, right? And that means we would need to constantly work and be around ourselves. It doesn't eliminate the presence of conflict, but then it then further shows that there's a level of shared aspirations, shared needs, amongst us. So it's essential that from a cognitive point of view, looking at it through the lens of the hierarchy of needs, you would see that after you have solved the basic things, the next layer is a sense of belonging, right? So you want to be a part of a community. So it's very essential for us, to grow as a people.
I like that. I like that he said it doesn't eliminate conflict. So in any situation, are you saying that should be a factor to note, that conflicts will happen and that I should be able to address them? But how do I prepare myself? Let's say communities now. Let's say, let's say tribes. How can one tribe prepare themselves, not in a bad way, but to be able to address conflicts or disagreements with
conflict resolution?
Conflict resolution, yes.
Definitely. I think fundamentally it falls down to communication and basic understanding, right? We see cases where and I see culture through 4 pillars, basically. You see culture from a position of economics, trying to, meet the limitless ends, right, through scarce means, right? And then you see through the religious lens. You see through the trying to explain things that are not easy to explain, right? You also see through the marital lens and other aspects. Now, if you understand these through these pillars, and then you try to grow a level of cultural intelligence, you will know through this lens that in their nuances, right, different nuances, they are trying to solve these basic problems. So it's very essential that as a people, we clearly understand what this tribe is trying to say from a fundamental standpoint, right? And then leverage that to understand that they're trying to say this particular thing in their own way. How can we then look out for common grounds to make sure we make that happen? Education will play a very, very fundamental role in that way, and we've seen it in certain policies. A basic policy as the NYSC, where you see individuals, young individuals, leaving school and going to experience new cultures and how they work. So from an empathy standpoint, you clearly understand how these people live their lives, and then you can relate. It helps you stay exposed, and then you can better manage their nuances and differences.
Interesting.
So, when I think of fraternity, I just can't help but to think of the university days.
No.
I'm sorry, I cannot. I've been trying to shake it off my head. But fraternity also means connectivity, and then, you know, society, if that makes any sense, or as the word implies, you know, fraternize. And that means a connection that already exists. We have gone way past those days where you send letters. We're now so connected, and we're now a global village.
Yeah.
So we're connected by the internet, we're connected by, you know, by social media,
Yes.
and we're connected by even our mobile phones, you know, telephones. We're now so connected, yet there's a lot of divide. That's where, why does the gap still persist? And it seems to be widening now with Trump.
Okay. So the reality is that, yes, while we have a level of individualism in the digital age, data shows that even the Gen Zs are looking out for communities.
They are?
Yes, they are.
Late to the party.
They are actually looking out for communities. You know, remember the times when we had all these village meetings, and then you have associations in grassroots and all of that. Those were examples of fraternity. I remember when I saw the topic, it was very similar to confraternity, so I was very, very careful, you know, with the conversation. But it still boils down to the conversation of shared aspirations, right? And looking at how we can support ourselves to create that level of stability, you know, as it is. So coming down to the bit of digital age, we see a level of social proof that also drives certain communication within that space. So it shows that a lot of young people want to see that other people are doing a certain thing, right? And they're looking out for communities of people that are experiencing what they are going through at the moment, and see how they can also solve those problems, you know, as it is. And that's why you've seen conversations around mentorships, you know, and social media platforms, you know, where these guys also express themselves.
I'll take this conversation into a higher gear now, and I'm going to go on a national level. Recently, the past couple of months, we saw a couple of friends get together and form a bloc, and I'm talking about Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. Is there one more? But the threesome or more?
No, it's three. So Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Yeah.
Okay. They formed the bloc. They're like, we're going to do our own thing, do our own passport, perhaps maybe even our own currency eventually. And it seems to be working out. They share very different vision and aspiration from the other countries inside of the West African states. They're democratic. These guys are military rule. Now the question of coexistence, whether it's between nations, between tribes, between people, between Wike and Fubara, all of that comes to play. How can we ensure that while we have different tenets, we can still maintain communicable fraternity?
Definitely. I think Judy said it while she was talking about the day. It's literally understanding mutual respect and empathy. Right. I think that's the core of it. That's the core of brotherhood. These guys coming together is because, like I say, I repeat for emphasis, is shared aspirations. They have shared needs. They have shared beliefs.
What could a democratic process, what shared aspiration could we have with a military-run regime like what we see in the Sahel bloc?
So
can I answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
you want to answer?
Please do. Yes, please do.
Yeah. So it's economics. Right, so as always,
you're going where I totally agree.
Bilateral, bilateral trade and economics. So the Sahel is very porous. When you think about Niger and our borders, when you also think about Burkina Faso as well as Mali, those states their borders are porous. They've had insurgency over the years, and they're also prone to climate change, and which means that they also need to rely on. We're going to see a lot of migration from their states to other states in terms of the threats from climate change and desertification. So I'm going to stop here and let you.
I totally align with you.
But then that's the thing. So is there fraternity without transaction? Is there fraternity that's just because of the sake of fraternity, or must there be that transactional factor to it?
So I think base level, the relationship is transactional because it's mutually beneficial. But then fraternity takes it a step further, right? It brings in that level of emotion to
diplomacy. Is diplomacy fraternity? Because it's like as if you're being careful.
I think it's a tool.
Being careful not to cross certain boundaries. Like, I know this is how you people like it, but okay, we'll go around.
It's a tool because diplomacy actually would spin off cultural intelligence. It is that I understand how you operate, and this is how we operate. How can we have a common ground, to make things happen as it is. We see it in other continents. We see it in the ASEAN bit where they have their tariffs with their blocks, as it is. EU, and our own AU. So if these guys, is mission over method, if these guys also in their shared belief, see that this is how they can achieve certain goals, their shared aspirations, hey, they're free to make it happen.
In all of this, one thing I take away is that emotional intelligence seems to be key then.
Very essential.
I think let's sound the alarm on how important it is that the leaders of these states, whether it's the Sahel bloc or even the entirety of West Africa or even the ECOWAS itself, must have emotional intelligence.
And we can't take out the fact that these individuals would also have to prioritize their people, right? So it then creates a level of contrast as regards how do I, constantly look out for my people, but then we then achieve that our shared goals, leveraging on the resources of our partnerships within our fraternity.
Right. Let's come back home to Nigeria, shall we? Where every single time elections are here, a certain group of people suffer, and a certain skin tone suffer. Because if you're light-skinned, you are automatically believed to be from that era, right? And very quickly, when the elections are about that time, they start to point who is from this part and who is from that part and who is Nigerian and who has a legitimate right to even speak about an election, And so it begs to ask the question about nationalism, fraternity, and why the gaps continue to persist, and why in that time it's always happening.
Why do we know he's an Igbo man when it's election time?
Right? Yeah. Yes. I think the idea of nationalism actually comes to play. We have over time seen a gap between policies and execution in our country, to be sincere. And we have great policies that foster this level of nationalism as it is, but then in implementing it in the grassroots, we then see that level of division. Personally, I see things in scales. I see it as a human factor, not just a cultural factor. A clear example would be an individual who needs a transplant of an organ. Immediately the organ comes in, the cells attack. So if inbuilt, you have your cells attacking, knowing that this is not one of us. At scale, you see it in our activities, in our actions, and even culturally.
So it's from a grassroots level already?
I think it's inbuilt.
It's in our individual or the community?
Thank you very much.
I have been arguing this thing for years.
Is it genetical?
Yes. It's inbuilt.
So, please can I
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Listen, so there was a study that was done, I think it was in the 70s, forgive me if I'm wrong, but Google it, please don't quote me on this, and it said it was done on the descendants of the Nazis, of those who were Israelis during the Nazis and who were victims of the Nazis. And what they found was they were susceptible to anxiety, depression, bipolar, and also schizophrenia. And you know why?
Why?
Because their descendants were forced through the most inhumane things during the concentration camp. And so they found the trauma of it so much so altered their brain chemistry, that it altered their DNA, that their offsprings are susceptible to that.
So it's like transferred, what do you call it?
Trauma, exactly. When you now look, and that's why when you think about this America First racism, I also argue that racism is epigenetics, because your descendants did, what were they? Your ancestors, what were they? They were slave owners. What are you? A slave owner. Yeah. It's your genetics. And so I think it's epigenetics. I think that it is ingrained in us to do certain things, because when you look at the Civil War and what happened during the Civil War and our teachings of the war, again, this is pseudoscience, don't quote me on it. Okay?
But then again, how can we overcome these epigenetics that she speaks of now?
Education, media have a lot of role to play. When I talked about, basically. So when I talked about the pillars of culture, one bit I missed out was education. The transfer of that knowledge that we have gained to the next generation, right? And in some cases, when we transfer that knowledge, we transfer the trauma as well, right? So in shaping our minds, it's essential that we make our children, our offsprings, know that we are, hey, look at the case of Rwanda, post-genocide. And they had to add unity studies to their curriculum, you know? So it's essential at the fundamental level.
It's a very deliberate approach.
Very that
by
they
the
are
government.
intentional about
so,
it.
So you're asking that our government be deliberate as well when
Yes,
it comes to the aspect of fraternity for the sake of unity for our country, which is very interesting, and I do agree. I'm going to go check research.
Yeah, I think you should read it. Read up on it.
I think I have
best.
plenty to say because I have so much regarding that I could defend it, but we don't have time.
Is epigenetics
Today's show has been fraught with plenty of arguments between I and Judith.
No, it's a debate.
We've come to the end of the show, and I don't want to tarry on with it, but Isaac, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a very exciting conversation.
What were the Friends with Benefits? Was that? Oh, sorry. It was World Fraternity Day. Fraternity Day. Judith.
He's doing it on purpose. Let me be the one to say goodbye, all right? You've had enough of us this morning, but get ready because we're back Saturday morning as well at 8 a.m. Until then, it's goodbye from us. My name is Judith at TV.
And of course, my name is Mazino Appeal. Catch you guys next week, Saturday, at Isaac. Bye-bye, everybody.